Friend Crush. I'm your host, Amber Akilla, DJ, creative consultant, etc., etc. This is my podcast where I talk about stuff and things, cute, chaotic, and critical thinking. Oh my god, I'm really sorry if you can hear the crows are going insane at the moment. But the show must go on. I'm trying my best here. So, in today's episode, I want to talk about digital distancing. I don't think this will be a long episode because basically I just want people to think about their relationship with technology and social media. For me personally, I love the internet. It's done so much for me. I can't imagine what my life would be like without the internet, honestly. Like growing up in such a small town, feeling very disconnected from the world physically, but also being very connected to the world through the internet and being exposed to so many different ideas, music, art, culture, and then also social media, being able to connect with people from all over the world and different opportunities. I feel very blessed to have been able to experience what I've experienced because of the internet. But at the same time, I think for every part of life, there is a light and a dark, a yin and a yang. And oftentimes we always want to focus on just the positive things, just the opportunities, just the exciting parts, and then we can forget that there are also shadow aspects to everything. And it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the good things, but I think just being aware that there is a light and dark to everything means that when and if the dark comes up, you aren't taken aback, you're not blindsided, and you can kind of manage everything in a more conscious and efficient way than if you were just stuck in shock or anger or the emotional response that comes with just dealing with the bullshit that life will throw at you. So even for the internet, of course, I think we're all consciously aware of the different side effects, risks that just being online a lot can do to you, just the exposure to content. I mean, the internet is really shaping our reality already. And for me, one of my main clients that I'm working with for creative consulting, they work in tech and they're exploring different opportunities with blockchain, crypto, and also the metaverse. I am not super across all these things. I'm learning, so I'm really grateful to be able to learn about these things that I probably otherwise would not give two shits about. I'm interested in the creative aspect and the opportunities that come with that. But obviously it's a completely new domain in the same way that it would have been for people going from no internet to internet world. This is a whole new transition that's happening between 2D internet and 3D internet. But for me, I'm already still dealing with the effects that come with 2D internet. And I want to be able to manage my relationship with 2D internet before I even think to get into 3D internet. And 2D internet already is shaping our reality so much, when you think about the echo chambers that you can exist in, the way that algorithms feed you information that you already or it knows that you'll in order to engage you, in order to use your attention as a currency, basically now. We are the product. When the product is free, that means you are the product. And every single platform now is looking for ways to suck your time and energy out of your eyeballs and onto the screen so that they can increase advertising revenue. And I'm not going to talk about whether that's a good or a bad thing because I don't want to see the world in a moral binary. For me personally, things just are the way they are. And according to my own values, I can say okay, that's cool, that's not so cool. That I would do, that I wouldn't do. This, I'm down for. The other things, maybe not so much. But I don't want to make blanket statements on what's good or bad because at the end of the day, reality is neutral and we are the ones that project meaning onto it. That's why some people are going to think some things are okay and other people aren't going to think they're okay based on everybody's context and the lens through which they view reality, a combination of their experience, their traumas, their preferences, whatever, their education, their age, their context, their race, their gender. All these things influence the way that we see reality, and ultimately we all live in our own reality. And love and connection is being able to build a shared one with the people around you, the people you care about, I digress, okay? So reality is neutral, but we humans are the ones that project meaning onto it. And a way to contextualize this is like, do you think a lion thinks about what it means to eat a deer when they're chasing a deer? No. Or an antelope, whatever lions eat. Fuck. But humans have prefrontal cortexes, so we are attaching meaning to things and we're able to, create things in a way that an animal with a different level of consciousness cannot. So, yeah, the internet is already shaping our reality, whether we like it or not. And I think I feel like people don't want to admit the influence that the internet can have on them or social media can have on them. I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I feel like sometimes people want to believe that they have more free will than maybe they do. It's not that you can't make conscious decisions. It's just that, society already operates at this vibrational level that really preys on our survival mode, preys on our fight, flight, and freeze mode, and also like our anger, outrage, kind of emotional reactions. That's how you can exploit people the best. People who are not emotionally reactive are not as easy to profit off. And whether you want to be profited off or not is up to you. But for me personally, like, I still enjoy the internet. I still love social media. I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I have had as a result of it. But it's really important for me to manage my time and energy at the same time, because I don't want to have my time and energy just sucked out of my eyeballs and not get anything done. Like, I still very much want to learn things. I want to live like a healthy-ish, somewhat well-rounded life without feeling like I'm being driven by anxiety or insecurity or depression or fear. And it is really easy to get into that trap if you're not managing how you use social media and your relationship with technology. I'm talking to myself here, at least for me. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about like digital distancing, this concept. Obviously, pandemic era, we talk about social distancing, being physically distant from people. But I think digital distancing is going to be more and more important as we move forward, and, the internet really starts to engulf our reality. When we move from 2D to 3D reality, I think people underestimate the challenges or risks that will come with a life where you can live in a virtual reality instead of the real one. There's definitely going to be a lot of opportunities and solutions that are available as a result of Web 3.0, but the upsides and these things are like focused on too much and hyped up a lot more than the potential risks, I think. Even with something like NFTs are sold as this like solution for creatives, it's game-changing decentralization, but there are already like a lot of scams that are going on in the crypto world, it just shows you like everywhere you go, there you are. That's what I believe. And the people who exploit society now and with the internet 2.0, they're going to get on 3.0 and do the same thing. So if people aren't more conscious about their relationships with social media, with the internet, then they're doomed to repeat the same mistakes, only with maybe like higher or more expensive, more damaging consequences, because the separation between us and the 3D virtual world, it might be harder to distinguish or might be harder to create because it will engulf like more of our senses, more of our brain space. I think now you can just kind of like, there's still a bit of distance when you're just like looking at a screen in comparison to like wearing a fucking sensory suit with a VR headset and feeling like you're actually like walking through a different world. Right now, you're just walking down the street or you're just lying in bed looking at a screen. But in the future, you're going to have, I don't know. I still don't really understand what's going on, but it concerns me, okay? I'm already concerned with Web 2.0. I think it's really, there are lots of great things, but there are also lots of downsides. And even like when I look into the origins of dating apps, a lot of these companies are created by people who have been accused of sexual assault. Okay, bit sus. Even when I watch like straight guys online do video essays on dating culture and online dating, someone talked about how the super like is basically like a digital catcall. Makes you think. And, at first, maybe these apps offered solutions and they were well intentioned, but because Silicon Valley, the tech industry, startup culture is very much growth at all costs, eventually, you need to make money from the service that you're providing, and that is done through advertising. That is done by selling people's data. That is done by having people pay to play, basically, on dating apps. So I think I used Tinder like in 2016, maybe, when I went on exchange. And at that time, I don't even know if there was a payment option on Tinder. I think it was still free because it was still relatively new. So it wasn't, I don't even know what Tinder looks like now. It sounds insane when they talk about how like you can buy super likes and then you can buy, maybe there was an option to buy more super likes in the old one, but now there's like a subscription to see who's liked you, to insert yourself into other cities. So many different options. And basically, especially for dating apps, like these apps really prey on male insecurities and male loneliness and encourage men to pay more money to get more matches or options or swipes or whatever. And most men actually end up losing on dating apps, and Tinder and Match.com or whatever end up winning with all this money. So that's one thing. Another thing is the effect that like porn addiction has. Also, just the hypersexualization, objectification of women's bodies and just people at large now from the internet, and how this completely fuck with our self-perception, perception of others, ability to connect. And it does concern me that all of these things are going to be exacerbated when you get into 3D. You can escape to a whole new level that you aren't able to do on just 2D. So for me, like I try to just keep that in mind, because whenever I learn about the effects that social media has on the brain, when I watch podcasts or videos that involve interviews with neuroscientists, it's like we don't have as much control as we think we do. Like think about how hard it is to change a habit. You have to be really conscious and choose every single day to change your behavior. It's not like, oh, I have the thought, I had the idea, and now it's implemented into the way that I live. Not at all. Like that's why it is important to develop self-awareness, expand your self-awareness, try to make conscious decisions so that you're not just like being whipped around by your base level human desires. Because so much of like what society operates on now is this kind of anger, outrage, fear, survival, emotional reaction part of the brain. Because when you are emotionally reactive, you're easier to manipulate. And a lot of these really big corporations want people to be manipulated easily so that they can make more money. If you're a truly confident, self-assured, centered person, you don't feel the need to overcompensate for what you don't have or what you feel that you lack by buying stuff. And we're in late stage capitalism and hyper consumption era. If you feel insecure, if you feel outraged, you're going to spend more time online, you're going to spend more time buying stuff. So that's why, regardless of whatever issue we're discussing, I really believe that connection to self is important. And when you're younger, you are just still, like your brain is still developing, you're still trying to understand yourself and the world. But as we get into adulthood, we have a choice to figure out how we can heal from past trauma. Everybody has trauma. Life is traumatic. Life is traumatic and problematic. Although it is beautiful and exciting and expansive, it is also traumatic. And I think we have a lot of shame around being able to admit that we were powerless in certain situations, but that it takes courage and vulnerability to be able to do that. And I really feel like in order for society and humanity to just progress in a healthy direction, or for any one person to just try to do that, it's really important to learn to confront that part of yourself and just manage your relationship with it. I mean, even for me, I find it really hard sometimes to even not admit, but just like really sit in the uncomfortable feeling of being like, yeah, there were times in my life where I felt completely powerless over a situation and I reacted in a way that I didn't want to, or I have carried a trauma with me and allowed it to dictate my decision making without me realizing. But having self-compassion is really important, being able to look back and think, yeah, I forgive myself for not knowing better in that moment, and what am I going to do with the information and the awareness that I now have. And that's how I feel about the internet too, because I think that, especially because I've been on TikTok is crazy, and I can tell when people are just being reactive to the content that they see without really thinking about what they're commenting or what they're making or whatever. Like, I still love TikTok, but it's just like our reaction times are being cut to almost nothing. You know, there's not a second of consideration for some people that are on the app, maybe most people on the app, that allows for people to really think about what they're doing. So that's something that's really important to me, because I don't want to be in a chokehold of my own emotions. And I'm not saying that I'm living in a perfectly zen state. Like, I do be crazy, but just being able to remind myself that it's possible to manage and that it takes practice, and it is like work, essentially. It's not something that you just do one time and then you can give up. You don't just like take a week off social media and then your relationship with social media changes. As soon as you log back on, your dopamine starts firing up again, because that's how those apps are designed. I took time off Instagram. I think I was spending too much time on it, or I just didn't like how I was feeling when I was on it. So I took time off. Great, highly recommend. But it's not like, oh, now my relationship with Instagram is completely different. Like, it's been almost a year since then. And what I have discovered for myself is to just better manage the way that I use it. And for me, like, it is impulsive to just open your phone, check Instagram, social media, whatever, when you're bored. But I think one thing that I've learned from watching a lot of like neuroscientists and stuff talk about social media is that, and the effect it has on the brain, is that it's really important for you to actually be bored and to experience boredom, because that is going to help you focus. And one thing that's important to me is like being able to learn new things. I don't want to not be able to learn stuff. And in order to learn things, you have to like deeply focus and engage with information. And if I'm like addicted to this like emotional roller coaster that social media provides, it can be really hard to focus. Like, at the moment, I'm trying to do 20 minutes of focused work at a time. Usually the Pomodoro technique, which is in 25-minute increments. I can't even do 25 minutes. It has to only be 20 minutes. And then I literally might take like an hour break in between 20 minutes of focused work. Focused work being like not checking messages, not checking my phone, and just focusing on one task at a time. You know, I feel like it's pretty natural for us to multitask, like check your email while listening to a podcast or watching a video and then checking a social media, whatever. But I want to be able to like actually focus, because my brain is important to me. And I think it's really important to look after yourself as if you're like looking after a child. Like, being an adult is reparenting yourself essentially. And you can't just, for me, let yourself be thrown in whatever direction that life comes to you, because I think I naturally really enjoy novelty. So I need to like cap myself a little bit. And I've actually noticed that putting a little bit of structure on my time and on my life and restrictions on things helps me to be more creative than if I just allowed myself to go spiral in whatever direction I felt like it. And I think that's the illusion of like modern life now. It's like, oh, there's so many opportunities, so many solutions, but nothing is really being done, because nobody is able to like deeply engage with things the way that they need to in order to like really have an impact on their life and the way that they see and do things. So I try to think about digital distancing and how I can do it in a way that allows me to still enjoy my life and be productive without, just feeling completely ruled by the technology around me. So I think it's quite common for people to wake up first thing and just immediately look at their phone, check their email, check their messages, check their social media. It's like a way to wake up because of the dopamine release that you get. But as I have learned, it's not good to be constantly spiking your dopamine, because dopamine and the pain and pleasure response are both connected. So for every pleasure you experience, there is a pain payoff, the same way that in life there is light and dark, okay? We live in a universe that is based on polarities and the spectrum between the two things. So with pleasure, there is pain. And I think it's important to manage our relationships with social media, because the pleasure, pain, like spikes that you're experiencing on it aren't necessarily productive or healthy for you, especially if you're looking at content that is very emotionally charged, which so much of the viral content on social media is. So the way that my relationship with social media has evolved over time, like when I first got it when I was younger, I didn't like Instagram at all, because at that time I was still growing up in Perth. Everybody around me was white. I just followed other accounts that people that I knew who were white were following, and it was depressing because I was like, I'm not skinny and blonde like this, so I can't relate, and now I feel shit about myself. Eventually, I found like other people who I had similar interests with or similar aesthetic to, and I was able to like unfollow a bunch of irrelevant accounts to me and follow people who looked like me, which is the beauty of social media, being able to curate a feed of your own representation. And then later down the line, I think I stopped following like a lot of celebrities or media platforms, or I think I made a Finsta and I followed anybody I didn't personally know on that account. So I had the option to check if I wanted to, and then on my main account, it's mostly people that I know. And I don't even go on my Finsta. So it's like my life has not really been affected in a negative way from doing that. But I think just knowing and choosing different options, because I had a friend who was talking about how, she feels like she's always on her phone too much and she needs social media for inspiration. And I'm like, what was the last like creative or inspirational thing that you did that like social media played a part in? If you really need to find inspiration, you need to go and find it. You can't just like passively expect it to come to you, and it's not going to when you're having dopamine spikes and dips from doom scrolling on social media all day. So that's one thing, really curating the stuff that you follow. I don't know why, but I think some people feel like they're obliged to follow certain people, and I guess in some ways that can be the case, but be ruthless. Like, it's your social media. You only need to follow things that spark joy for you. There's no reason why you need to suffer like that. Same thing with like the way that you consume news. Obviously, it's important to be informed about what's going on in the world, but a lot of news now is just like outrage baiting, and it's just like trauma porn almost. If you don't feel good after watching the news in the morning, stop watching the news in the morning. You know what I mean? Like, really learn to protect your peace, because it's not really going to change your life that much. Okay, for example, if watching the news in the morning is really stressful for you, you don't have anything to lose by not watching it. Unless it's like literally part of your job and you get paid to do it or something, then I guess that's different. But for the most part, for ordinary people, waking up in the morning and reading the news is really stressful, or watching the news, because most of the time they're only reporting on the fucked up stuff in the world, and a lot of the times for things that are completely out of our control. Like, even if you wanted to care or do something, it would be pretty hard to. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be informed about what's going on in the world, but it's just like, when do you want to engage with that information? Maybe not at the beginning of the day when like the vibe's going to be killed in the AM already. Give yourself some time. Bum yourself out, in the afternoon maybe. So yeah, get really ruthless with who you follow on social media. If you're feeling like being on there is too depressing, you don't have to follow celebrities. They're always on the explore page anyway, and you probably have friends who are reposting stuff by celebrities as well. If you really care about what a celebrity is doing, then you can still follow them, or you can look them up whenever you're curious. I don't know. Just be really conscious when you're scrolling through your feed. Anything that comes up and makes you feel even a little bit anxious or a little bit insecure, just unfollow it or mute it. There's no reason why you have to look at shit like that if it doesn't bring any benefit into your life. And the same with like anyone that you actually know that you follow. Like, people's online presence is not their whole life. And I think if you know someone in real life and they have an online presence that you don't resonate with, you can mute them or you can unfollow them, and you can even give them a heads up. Like, I don't take shit like that personally, because like I literally used to have friends tell me like, you're annoying on the internet, I'm unfollowing you. I'm like, okay, cool. We're still friends. It's not a big deal. Some people will take it personally. And if you think you would take it personally if someone did that to you, really interrogate your relationship with social media and the part that it plays in your self-concept. Because I have had people take it really personally if I've unfollowed them, or expect me to take it personally if they unfollow me. And it's just like, yeah, I like the internet and I share a lot of my life on there, but it's not my whole life. And I have an awareness of the difference between my online self and my IRL self. And it's easy to not have an awareness of that. So it is important to actually build that awareness, because yeah, like, you don't want your personal self-worth tied up in the number of followers you have. It doesn't mean that it's not normal to be like, oh, I lost a follower, oh, I gained a follower. But to me, that's like, oh, that's more about like my commercial worth, my value separated to me, my value as a product. But I'm not just a product, I'm still a person. So I have self-worth that exists separate to digital, quote unquote, worth, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Curate the feed. Also, I think sometimes it's, for me, I like being able to see things that I don't agree with, because I want to know what people are thinking. When you're in an echo chamber, you can kind of like get a really warped perception of how people see the world. And doesn't mean I like actively seek to be outraged, but sometimes I just look at things with curiosity to see what's going on. I think because of like the political correctness and this like division in political opinion from left to right, and the extreme ends of both, people think that to entertain someone's opinion that you don't like morally agree with makes you a bad person. But I think it just makes you, I don't know, a critical thinker to see what other reality people are living in, kind of thing. So I'm not like watching outrage news all the time, but sometimes, you know, if something comes up and it's got someone who I don't necessarily agree with, this is more for YouTube, I think, than Instagram. But, you know, I'll just see like, oh, what are these men saying today? And there are a lot of male content creators that I actually really like on YouTube. I think men make really good video essays and like informative videos that don't have like necessarily a value judgment attached to them. I think women are really good at analysis and understanding deeper meanings of things. But I really like watching finance explainers and stuff by dudes that can be really creative in the way that they deliver that kind of information. So yeah, looking at things that you wouldn't necessarily take a natural interest in, but just understanding something that is not familiar to you, I think is a really great benefit of the internet. Having an open mind and being able to connect different dots together is a fun thing to do, for me at least. If you are interested in doing the same, if you feel like you're just watching the same thing said over again in different words. Another thing that I try to do is just limit my time on social media in general. I mean, even though I'm pretty engaged when I'm online, I try to have time where I'm just not online. Like one day a week where I don't go on TikTok or Instagram. I try to do that most weeks. I try to limit the amount of time that I'm on apps each day, or at least like delay going on it until later in the day, because I want to have most of my energy saved for just like doing stuff in the daytime, being able to work and be present at work, being able to learn new things, being able to record the podcast, and then I'll save going on Instagram and TikTok for the afternoon and the evening on weekdays, and then weekend I'm less strict. But yeah, it definitely doesn't necessarily decrease my screen time. It just means that I don't feel like so depleted, or I'm not constantly distracted during the day in the same way as I would be if I was allowing myself to constantly check social media whenever I'm like bored, because boredom is very important. You need to rest the mind. If you want to be able to do focused and deep work, it's going to be uncomfortable, right? Because the way to like build new neural pathways or whatever in your brain requires this kind of like discomfort that you have to move through in order to grow. You know, growth is usually uncomfortable or painful. The same way it's painful to work muscles in the gym or when you're working out in order to grow muscles, that's the same thing with your brain and self-growth, because you're trying to push against the force of entropy or whatever. Like think about a seed that's trying to bloom in the ground. There's so much force that seed needs to exert against gravity and the world around it in order to like become a tree. Try not to beat yourself up when you don't feel like, when you're in this state of discomfort, because so much of modern life is about escaping discomfort and trying to avoid pain at all costs being buying stuff, spending money, and running away from our feelings. But it's important to know and distinguish between discomfort that comes at a cost to you, a discomfort that minimizes your needs or your wants, a discomfort that ultimately can be self-destructive or not healthy, and then distinguishing between that discomfort and then discomfort that comes in service of your personal growth. Discomfort that comes in service of your own healing, discomfort that comes in service of you connecting more to your higher self, or, you know, you being able to prepare yourself to be a better version of you later. Because whatever we do today is going to determine who we are tomorrow. Basically, there's always a delay. Getting used to that process and embracing that journey instead of trying to get to outcomes. You need to learn how to be present in the process, which is easier said than done, okay? Because I'm struggling, but that's why I got to do digital distancing. It's had a huge impact on me, and it's very subtle, I think. So have faith. All of these things that are essentially part of your like spiritual self-care, I would say, because anything that's kind of like more connected to the mind, emotions, spirit, I consider spiritual self-care versus superficial self-care that's more like bodily, like, you know, your hygiene, your skincare, your diet, etc. Everything is connected, but like I said, one thing is like your hardware, the other is your software. So for spiritual things, I mean, even for physical things, superficial things too, like it is a practice. Little bit each day is going to have the most impact, instead of thinking that you have to do it all in one go and then you never have to do it again. So it's not like you're either fully online or fully offline, or you're offline for 3 months and then for the rest of the year you can do whatever you want. I think if you want to take 3 months off or a week off, that's great, just to like do a little reset. And then I think figuring out how you can manage each day is important too. So yeah, no phone for me early in the morning. I try not to go on my phone too late at night, but that's a bit harder. Got to work on that. And curating your algorithm, and just like working on your general self-care too. Like meditation and journaling is so important for me as a tool to just help me recenter, reconnect with myself. And I think it's really helped me in being able to have a healthier relationship with the internet. I don't take things as personally as I might do if I wasn't doing those things. It's not like I've completely achieved ego death or whatever. I don't even know if that's possible. Just being able to separate thoughts from the thinker, feel uncomfortable emotions when they come up instead of like overcompensating with clapbacks. But it doesn't mean I don't want to clap back and be sassy every now and then. But yeah, it's definitely helped a lot, I think. I don't even remember what it was like to be crazy reactive online, because I really try to create a safe space mentally, spiritually for myself in day-to-day life, so that I don't feel so overwhelmed, and so that I can just be like a better friend and person to the people that I engage with. And yeah, make decisions based on what is right for me, which is what I encourage everybody to do. I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what I've done. Maybe that is some wisdom for you, or that can help give you ideas or perspective. But ultimately, what is right for you is going to be something that only you can determine. And it just takes practice and experimentation to figure it out. Like for me personally, changing the stuff that I followed, changing the content that I watched, when I watched stuff, how long I was using my devices for, taking extended breaks, and then learning how to take little breaks during the week in order to just manage everything. I just can't be so plugged in all the time. It's exhausting. I literally cannot function. Some people can actually do that really well, but not me. So that's why digital distancing is important. And I am genuinely concerned for the future of humanity if we don't start taking these steps to better manage our relationship with every part of our lives, especially because so many companies have such a huge stake in seeing us not have a relationship. They're not going to do anything that's not ultimately profitable to them, as long as profit is the most important thing when it comes to, capitalism, the economy, whatever. And for the people that have the most power and influence, which is people that are CEOs and corporations in the Western world. Not many checks and balances are being implemented now, especially because people in the government just go in and out of the private sector. So everything is connected. And I think it is up to us as individuals to determine what is right for us without allowing our time and energy to be profited off without our awareness, or without just being able to develop a healthier relationship with things like social media and the internet. It's really fucking hard because these things are literally designed to suck your time and energy out of your eyeballs, and your eyes are an extension of your brain. Did you know that? They're not separate to the brain, they are the brain. So I care about mental health, physical health, spiritual health, general well-being. So it's important for me to learn how to manage these things. It's not a perfect practice, but I think the fact, just doing a little bit is going to help. And start small, maybe it's just you don't keep your phone in your room when you sleep. I think it was definitely a progression for me, and I'm always just checking in to see if I need to adjust. I used to charge my phone in my room, next to my bed. Then I moved my phone out of my room to outside, and then just use a clock, not a phone alarm, unless I desperately need a phone alarm, which these days I don't because I don't have anywhere to be. Then I would stop. Maybe at first I would put it outside, and in the morning I would check my phone and see what was up. Now I try to not look at notifications for at least 20 minutes to an hour if possible, or not engage in too much communication. And I'll do a meditation or journal, whatever, yoga if I have time, before I dive in. Just having that mental space really helps, because otherwise, especially with work, you're so much of our lives are so reactive. You have to respond to emails, requests, talk to people. I think just having that time to yourself is really important. And then I think moving forward, I'm going to have to try to do some kind of evening wind down, because sleep is so important as well. And the time that we spend online and the kind of dopamine spikes or whatever that we experience as a result can really affect our sleep and our concentration, overall well-being, stress, etc., etc. So I thought this was going to be a short episode, but I guess not. And just sharing my thoughts on digital distancing. Some people can just not go on social media. That's not me though. Love that for them. But if you struggle, like me, then I think digital distancing is something to just consider, because I want win-win, not win-lose. And if I'm just scrolling mindlessly, allowing algorithms to dictate how I feel and what I think, then it's win for tech companies, which is all straight white guys usually, and then lose for me. I don't want to live like that. I would never let a man profit off me in that way without my consent. So thank you for listening. Sometimes I think doing that kind of mental gymnastics can really help, because when you feel powerless in your urges to do things, you just need to flip the script a little bit. So my pride is important to me. So that's why I would do mental gymnastics and be like, well, tech companies are owned by men who aren't in touch with their feelings, which is why they create these cold and disconnected solutions under the guise of connection. And they're profiting off me and every single finger tap that I do on my screen. So in order for me to empower myself, I need to reclaim my time and energy away from it being unnecessarily profited off by social media apps or the internet or whatever. Not a perfect system, but be motivated by spite. Everybody has a shadow. I'm not ashamed of mine. So yeah, thank you for listening. You can follow me on Instagram at Amber Akilla, TikTok as well, and also friend.crush on Instagram. Send me a message if you enjoy listening to the podcast or whatever. I really appreciate when people send me messages. It's very affirming, I'm literally just talking to the air in my room. It's bloody crazy. Yeah, let me know if there's anything you want to hear about in future. I'm always open to just sharing my perspective on things. And I hope that you are looking after yourself. Tell your friends and family that you love them. Go drink some water and go be a better person. Bye.